Greetings, my friend. Welcome to the secret shop.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the secret shop. I am Neon, and I'm joined today by Cymen. How are you doing?
I am super excited to talk about Artifact today.
Yes, and I have another person who's excited to talk about Artifact today, and that's Anger. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Just popped a lemonade, and I'm ready.
Yeah, no, we are hyped to be here today to talk to you about all of the things that we saw at PAX. Actually, not even all the things we saw at PAX. There's going to be so much stuff that we're going to have to spread those out over a couple of episodes. But man, we got just like a ton of wicked stuff that came out this weekend at PAX West. And so let's just like launch right into it right off the top. Actually, I'm going to ask you, a beginning question for you guys. What did you see? What was the thing that you saw this weekend that made you the most pumped about Artifact? The thing that I actually saw to me that just like really was like, yeah, man, I never. It's just the visual effects. It's so like kind of silly and stupid, but like I getting those great visuals of the thunder or the echo slam or whatever. It was wicked.
Yes. Oh yeah, presentation is very important nowadays, especially when it comes to card games, because people have this preconception that they're boring, etc. So for those people who don't really get the excitement of card games, you definitely need that sort of presentation to make things more visually interesting.
Are you saying that I just don't appreciate card games? Is that what you're trying to imply? Because I love card games even if they don't have that. I just thought it was wicked to have an addition.
They're a must. I'm just saying they're a must.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, Anger? What was the thing that you saw this weekend that you're like, man, that was wicked?
Definitely when Dabacab fucking destroyed Lumi. That really got me going.
Yeah, that was pretty sweet.
Dabacab is a mutual friend of ours who is very big on YouTube. We'll probably put all his channels into the description below on YouTube.
Yeah. So he is somebody that we've been chatting a bit with about. He's interested in getting involved in Artifact content creation, focusing right now on Fortnite and Overwatch, and definitely has been doing really well for himself. Has been on YouTube for quite a few years, but he was the first guy to go up against Luminous Inverse on the stream at the beginning of day 2 of PAX. So it was really hyped that it was just like starting off the day with that, and we were all in the Discord chat hyping it up. So it was like, I mean, all of the games were sweet, but that was obviously just a fantastic way to start the day.
Personally invested.
Yes. So how about you, Cymen? What was something that you saw that it was like, yeah, that really gets my motor going?
Oh man, this is such a hard question, honestly, because I was just hyped day after day and discovering new stuff every day. I'm just very so happy about the depth of the game. I'm just happy that despite having the same 4 decks for several days in a row, you would still discover new synergies every day. That was super exciting to me. Every day I was like, oh, you can stack that?
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of wicked stuff, and I didn't get to catch as much as you did of the streams, but the stuff that I watched, I thought was really, really sweet of the different interactions and such. So for today, our plan is we're going to cover the news of what we learned about Artifact over these last couple of days, because there's just been a lot of news. And then we'll spend the rest of the time focusing on the heroes that we saw that are new and evaluating those and just discussing our thoughts on them. So let's begin by at the top. We actually got this huge surge of some of the big name players coming into the Artifact scene, which is really exciting. And we knew this was probably going to come in eventually, but things like Artifaction launching, which is the job that Action Slacks and Suns Fan and some of their friends are putting together. There's Beyond the Summit Artifact that launched too. So seeing those sites come online, or like Artifact Buff, like their site finally came online. I don't think that the site itself was active before this week. So seeing all of those sites and those resources come online, I thought was really, really exciting.
Very much so. The mainstream gaming media took notice as well. It was great seeing all these articles and videos from IGN and Ars Technica, etc. And I found it especially funny how pretty much all of those videos had some sort of joke about the initial, recall, the initial reception of the game. And people were like, oh, you're already typing in the comments about Half-Life, about, another Hearthstone clone, but it's not. So I'm glad that people are trying to kind of counter this hate culture.
And I got the impression that, it was quite the hit at PAX itself, that there was just seemed to be a lot of buzz at the event, huge lineups every day. I got the impression, at least, partly because I'm biased and I'm watching it this way, but it seemed to be something like the highlight of PAX or one of them.
Yeah, definitely. The guys on the stream itself said so as well. They said, obviously, Nintendo had super long lines as well, but they were definitely one of the top games at PAX, undoubtedly.
Anything else that came out in terms of that kind of news? Actually, another one that came out that was really interesting. The BTS guys, that's Beyond the Summit, by the way. For those of you who don't know what Beyond the Summit is, this is an organization that's really involved in running esports events. They've done a lot of Dota stuff, but previously. So that's an organization now that's getting involved in doing artifact work from what the looks of it. So if we refer to BTS, that's who they are. But they actually also did a podcast themselves over the weekend over PAX, and getting an interview. I don't know if you guys had a chance to see that, an interview with Luminous and the Fwash. I never know how to pronounce her name because I've just seen it written. I haven't heard it said. But did you have a chance to see that one, Anger?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you missed out, unfortunately, because they had a lot of really interesting commentary on playing the game, because apparently Luminous is already 1,000 hours into the game or whatever.
Yeah, several thousand, but some of that may have been exaggeration, but definitely 1,000 hours. It sounds like he's definitely one of the top players in the closed beta currently. That's what they've been saying.
Yeah, so that's really exciting, and listening to them talk about their impression of the cards and the strategy of the game. That'll be another one that I'll link in the description, because I thought that was really well done and got me excited to see what we can see in terms of strategy.
Luminous was definitely one of those perfectly calculated players. He would always come with the mathematics and do the exact amount of damage to the tower every time.
Yeah. Who else was playing in the game? So Fwashi, the Luminous, Action Slacks, Suns fan was there too, right?
Yeah, and Bruno at one point as well, but he lost.
Taste it. Okay, so other news-ish sorts of things. We learned some stuff about the game that's more at a mechanical level of how
tons.
How things work, which was there were all these sort of subtle questions that we didn't know before exactly how it interacted or whatever. So how about we start with Modify? What did we learn about Modify, Anger?
That it actually persists after death, which is really interesting. And at first, I got kind of annoyed by it and thought, how can this be balanced? But then you made me realize that it's actually positive buffs too. It's not just negative buffs. So it is balanced. It's a little bit annoying in a tabletop sim artifact, because you have to keep track of all the modifiers. But I'm sure in an actual artifact game, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, this was a surprise to me as well. I also did not think that these would stack on top of each other throughout the entire game, even beyond death, and in the end there would just be this huge list of debuffs and buffs on a hero, but that's how it is. They just counteract each other all the time. And we have not seen many purge abilities yet, but we'll get to that a little later soon, I assure.
So, this is something that was a pretty big evolution. Now, one of the things I should mention in Eternal, a game that I played a lot of, this is a digital card game, and one of the factors and elements of that game that makes it unique is the fact that the status abilities persist between different zones. So a unit that dies that has a certain buff or certain ability, maintains that buff or ability in death, so that if you resurrect it or whatever, it still has that. So you kind of see, like, in playing in that space, how that operates in the different things that offers in the game, and how it's interesting. But in Artifact, it's different because so much of it is focused around the heroes themselves, and they have this built-in recursive mechanic to them. So, for instance, like if I'm playing give some arbitrary examples from Eternal. You don't have to know the game. I'm playing a Praxis deck. Praxis doesn't have any interactions with the Void, which are the graveyard area. So if I give my units buffs or sick abilities or whatever, and then they die, it just doesn't matter at all in the course of the game. So there are obviously some specific decks that really take advantage of this, but it's not like an every deck, every game kind of thing. In Artifact, it is going to be an every deck, every game kind of thing, I would imagine.
Yeah. Every hero unit, basically. Yeah.
So that was something that is a really cool element, and we have to see how like Purge and Silence and stuff will interact with that. But I get the impression that Purge will like removes those sorts of bonuses. But definitely seems like a powerful ability to have access to. So that's another one. How about item cooldowns? One of the things that I picked up from the streams is that it seems that the cooldowns, when you first play the item on the hero, they are not active yet, and they require the time to power up. This was something that we had discussed previously. About whether or not it would work this way, and I'm pretty sure that from what I saw in the games, that the cooldowns definitely didn't quite work the way that I expected, but they weren't active from turn 0.
There is a difference, I believe. As far as I know, the items start off cooldown, so you can use them in your next round, by the way, as soon as your opponent passes again. But hero abilities, those start with half of their normal cooldown.
Half of their normal cooldown? Really?
As far as I know, yeah. Usually Fisher of Earthshaker would have a 4-round cooldown, and if I remember correctly, he would start with a 2-round cooldown when he was first spawned.
Okay, so the reason why I think that is that it's not because it has it's half. It's that it starts from the beginning of the game, and then it goes and it operates while he's in the fountain.
Right.
Yeah. So he would, because the way that in the deck that he was part of, he came out on turn 2.
That is a possibility. That is too bad. We'll have to check the replays for that, I assume.
No, I'm pretty sure I observed the same thing as Neon too. That, right. And that's what we do in TTS as well. They start out with the cooldown depending on how many turns there's been.
All right then.
Yeah. So that was something that I thought was an interesting change, or evolution of that. Another mechanical point that we learned about was specifically regeneration. This is a new ability that we didn't see before, but seems to show up in a couple of places. We didn't see too many cards with it. I think that we saw Omni Knights.
Wingfall Hammer.
Yeah, that's one of them that looks really good. How about you actually just read that one for us and pull that up and tell us about that card?
Okay. Wingfall Hammer. Equipped hero has +4 attack. Active, 1-round cooldown. Give equipped hero and its allied neighbors +X regeneration this round, where X is half its attack.
Yeah, that weapon seems really good to me, and I was really interested to see how that one will play out. But did we have confirmation of exactly how regeneration works? Because I'm guessing that it gives the health back every turn. Do we know if it's at the beginning of the turn cycle or at the end of the turn cycle?
It is actually at the combat phase. So when combat occurs, it happens at the exact same time as the damage is applied. So let's say a unit has 3 generation and it receives 4 damage. It will only receive 1 damage because 3 points of damage are regenerated as they are being dealt to the unit.
Oh,
yes,
that's
and
neat.
that also means, let's say it's the other way around, and a unit has 5 regeneration and only 3 damage is being dealt to it. It will actually still gain 2 health,
but only until full.
But it doesn't. There is no such thing as overheal, so it doesn't gain more health than it had originally. It can only heal up to its maximum.
Yeah, and then what does that also mean that if you have like 5 regeneration and say you have 5 regeneration, the hero is at 2 life, and then they take 4 damage. That actually, what will be the good way to put it?
They will still gain 1 health, so
Okay.
they would end up with 3 health at the end of that combat.
Okay, sure. Cool beans. That's really neat. So yeah,
and this makes certain units extremely powerful when X regeneration is half of its attack. So one of those really powerful units that we've seen would have a regeneration of like 5 or 6 or even 10.
Mm-hmm.
And any damage you deal to it would be healed.
Yeah,
that's insane.
I feel like there's a lot of need for purge effects or, destroy attachment items effects or silence effects to get rid of some of these bonuses, because I've been realizing that there are a lot of ways to really snowball the game with some of these powerful abilities.
Mm-hmm. Thankfully, the UI keeps track of regeneration as well, of course. So it was funny to see that usually the -2, -3 damage numbers were turned into green plus numbers in certain aspects, certain combat.
Mm-hmm. We also got some information that we saw like a picture of the end screen in the game. We don't really have very much to say about that other than the fact that it exists and that this is an interesting way to get some stats about what happens in the game. It didn't look very finished and polished just yet, but that was just a cool feature that they seem to have access to. And then we also learned that there's going to be more beta invites that are going to be coming outside of just what happens at PAX and at the TI. We kind of suspected this last week or when we talked previously that we probably wouldn't just be at these events that they would be giving out. There's going to be more being given out. So that's exciting and means that there'll be more opportunities for those of us who are interested in getting in and didn't have a chance to go to these events.
And another thing is that it's Artifaction that's giving away those keys, right? Or is it BTS? It's Artifaction, right? But
Artifaction is giving away some, but I know that Bruno basically just said there will be more opportunities, but at least Artifaction has some extra keys.
And wasn't it Jeep who said that? I think Jeep said it in an interview too. That's what I was going to say, that they're two independent different people saying that there will be more keys. And that makes me really positive for the future for those who don't have keys yet.
I imagine there might be a couple of people who are listening who are interested in getting in on the beta, maybe 1 or 2. So if you're one of those people, make sure that you go follow those sources and retweet them and get in on those beta invites, beta key giveaways. So there'll probably be more too. Like we don't know how all of them are going to be given out. There's still more to that, but at least we know there'll be a few different sources for it as well. I know that Anger, you secured your beta invite already, as I understand it, correct?
Yes, I couldn't wait. I needed the closure. I couldn't handle it. I had to get it out of my head. Just know, okay, I am in beta. It's done. It's over.
Yeah, I can definitely respect that.
Even if I might have been able to get one in an easier way later, it's still worth it because now I can actually sleep for once.
Oh, yeah.
just no sleep until beta invites mine.
I'm gonna sleep. Wake me up when September ends.
Yeah.
Wow, accurate.
Yeah, or just when beta starts. That's all. But that's really exciting and means that there'll be a lot more people who are in the beta. It sounds like this is going to be a really large beta. from what it's sounding like. There's a lot of beta keys that are going to be out there between TI, and then like they probably gave out just thousands of them over the course of the weekend. So, and then they'll be giving out some in addition so that people in other regions have access to the game as well. So hopefully most people who want to get in will be able to get in, and I'm really excited to see and learn more about that. But with that, is there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on before we moved into talking about the heroes specifically, about the just general news that happened over PAX that you felt was important to mention?
The only thing that I can think of is the short glimpse that we had at the end screen. For some reason, the default stat that is being looked at, of course you can change that, but the default is the worth of items equipped on heroes being put into a graph. So that seems to be one. The devs seem to consider that a very important stat. So I'm looking forward to see how much equipped item value really matters to a win, basically.
Okay. So how about we move in then to talk about the heroes? Because we got a bunch of new heroes for over the course of the weekend. Now, our conversation now, we're only going to be talking about the heroes that we know everything about them. Because there's a few heroes that were released where we got the picture and the stats and their signature card, but we didn't get what their passive or active ability was and how they function, and missing a piece of what the hero is in order to evaluate it is it makes it much more difficult. So we are going to be focusing on just going through the heroes that we know everything about, that are new and we hadn't seen before. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, and there's still a reasonable amount. I think that there were like 11 of them, and And also, of course, heroes are really important, so it's worth spending the time and energy and focus to talk about them in this kind of directed way. One thing to note even before we get into that is it seems like there is this cycle of heroes that are creep inspired, which was really interesting. We didn't know about that before the weekend. That they're basic heroes. Basic is the 4th rarity in Artifact, which means that it's the lowest, like ultra low rarity. I mean, everybody has access to this at the beginning of the game, I think, is how they differentiate it, and they don't appear in packs.
Yeah.
So
basically, they are part of the base set that you need to play the game. And as far as I remember, these will actually not be up for trade either, because everyone has them.
Yeah, which makes sense.
The game.
Which makes sense. So, but yeah, we have so one of those for each of the different colors, and then they also have the names that are associated with the names of the factions or something like this. So like there's like the Cunning, the Bold, the Dreamer, etc. Which I'm not sure exactly how that'll tie in with things. Maybe that'll come up more later in terms of a lore connection afterwards, which will be really cool.
Lore.
Yes, I know that both of you guys are fanatics for the lore.
Who is Jolixia?
Yeah,
find out later.
Do you guys have either of you have any theories on that? Actually, just for those of you who didn't catch what that was, like this is a name that like shows up in some of the promotional materials that showed up in the weekend, and I have no idea who this is.
Well, my theory is that Jolixia will be the keeper of this secret shop-looking abode where the game will take place in. If any of you have watched my first video on the Artificers Guild, I mentioned that there is this frame narrative to Artifact where this game is being played within the universe of Dota 2/Artifact. So, and we can see on the board basically that this game is being played in a almost tavern-like setting, which I assume to be this abode on the back of a turtle. And I assume Jolixia to be the caretaker of that place, probably a keeper.
Did you have any theories on that one, Anger?
No, not anything new.
Yeah, we only saw these little introductions of from Jolixia to the 4 colors of the game. And I assume that those will be voice lines that will be played when the player gets to choose and play around with the different colors.
Something interesting. I haven't really thought out enough or enough yet, but because of these 4 new creep heroes, which I still think are creeps, they're not heroes, but or of course, like mechanically in the game they are heroes, but like they're not heroes, you know what I mean? They're still creeps.
You mean the unknown so far?
But the thing is, right, because the Vul Rebellion was Rix and the Vuls, which are creeps in the Dota 2 universe. And all of these other, like, what if the Battle of Roseleaf and what's going on in the artifact lore is not just the Vul Rebellion, but all the different types of creeps suddenly having an uprising, I don't know, against the Legion Commander for jungling all the time, or something like that.
Well, there is a difference in the lore between like the laning creeps of the Radiant Undyre and the so-called neutral creeps, and throughout the history of Dota development, even coming from the original mod, it has always been creeps that served as the inspiration for heroes, like Ogre Magi, for example. We have another ogre here that is inspired from the Ogre Bruiser creep, etc. And one of the heroes that we'll be looking at in a little bit is inspired by one of the Troll Shaman, for example. So this has always been the case in a way. But there's more now.
It is something that these new heroes, the cycle of heroes, I guess a good way to put it is I don't think that they're going to be showing up in Dota for sure as a hero.
Yeah.
They are something that's specific to the world of Artifact. It's also something that I don't know enough really about the lore for sure, but really the differentiation of like what exactly makes a hero. Yeah, like are they really that different than other things that are in the universe exactly? It doesn't seem as if there's a really well-defined like token or element that you're saying like, yes, this is what makes you a hero.
Maybe you should read the comic Are We Heroes Yet, which was the very first Dota 2 comic ever.
But the reason,
and what does it say there?
The reason why I'm coming in with my hot take that these are creeps and not heroes is because it's 4 of them, 1 of each color. They're the same rarity. They're all a little bit underpowered, let's be honest, and
basic bitches.
They are all inspired by actual neutral creeps in Dota 2. Whereas, like, if they weren't still creeps, then it would probably be maybe 1 or 2 creep inspired, and then the rest, like the other heroes, which are not necessarily inspired by neutral creeps in the Dota 2 lore. So I think it's too. It's just too much of a coincidence if there wasn't more to it. That
I think that you're right that there's a reasonable chance that there's some more lore background to it, but we'll have to wait, I think, to get into it. But how about we then pivot to actually talk about the cards themselves? We're gonna start at black, and the creep hero, the basic hero from this one is Riley the Cunning. It is a 7/5, and it has the continuous ability or passive ability. It can also be known as the Riley the Cunning deals +2 damage when attacking a hero or tower. And the signature card is No Accident, and it says deal 3 damage to a unit. So let's start with Anger. What is your initial impression of this card?
Well, the thing is, okay, this is why she's crap, because she's basically a mix between Sorlakan and PA. Yeah. She does 2 extra damage to either the tower or a hero, which can be convenient, like depending on what you do. Sometimes you're against a hero, sometimes you're against a tower, whatever. But the thing is, she only has 5 health. She has lower health than the others. So if she's against Sorlakan or PA, they both kill her. Easy. In fact, most slightly strong or high attack heroes one-shots her. And her spell, it's not terrible, but it's just not that good. 3 mana for 3 damage to any unit, and this is to any unit, not in any lane. Where in black we have some other spells that you can deal 2 damage to a unit in any lane, or 4 damage to a unit in any lane. And like this just feels so underpowered compared to those two spells. And she's just not as good as having either PA or Sorla and focusing on one thing you want to specify or specialize in. I don't know, but that's just my thoughts.
I definitely see where you're coming from. These new creep-inspired healers definitely feel like a cheaper or weaker version of existing heroes in many ways, like mini versions. But that still means that they fit into certain niche strategies. For example, the decks that were present at PAX, I thought that Riley did fit into pretty well. But we will have to see, because I feel like 3 damage to a unit, even if it's within a lane, that is still a pretty decent chunk. And we've seen that being used to great effect. I mean, it stacks up pretty quick.
Yeah, but it's still not one of the better spells. It's still underpowered compared to other signature cards, which are insane usually.
Still high damage.
It's useful to have damage at different applications. I was actually going through and spent some time comparing this to some of the other cards that are available. So one, you have a 4-cost card in black that's Pick Off. This is a non-signature card. This is a common, and it's deal 4 damage to a unit in any lane. So that I think is a better card than No Accident. You also have Frostbite, a signature card for Crystal Maiden that deals 2 damage and disables the unit for the turn, which I think is much better than this. And we also have there's another one that deals 2 damage to all units in all enemies in a lane as well, in like the same lane as you. So like this is like, I think with all of these heroes, this one more than some of the other ones. There's a couple of them that are like, one of them at least I think is pretty bad. This one, it's like, it's definitely not exciting, but I think that they'll, like, if you're forced to put it into your deck, it'll kind of be okay. Like I can imagine there might be some like mono black aggro deck maybe that would play something like this, like if you don't have a lot of other options. But definitely if you're in a 2-faction deck and you have like a fully built out collection, I don't expect that this card will really do that much in terms of competitive play, partly because also sort of how Anger was mentioning, it doesn't specialize very much at anything. It kind of is just, it's okay at everything, when for the most part you kind of would rather have something that was specialized to a given task.
I think it's got pretty decent damage, and I think there is an argument to be made for high damage heroes that have low health like this, because they do come back, and some of the beta testers on stream have said that the most common mistake that new players make is overvaluing heroes, because they do come back. Yes, you feed gold to them and you need them to be present to cast certain spells, but since they come back, especially those with rapid deployment, you shouldn't overvalue them too much. So I feel like having a weaker hero like this that does pretty damn decent damage to heroes and towers, and having that be a constant threat throughout the entirety of the game does add to its value. And you can still beef her up with items.
Well, yeah, but Neon's point is that she's just not that great. Like, of course, if she was in your deck, like, you could play with it and it would be fine. But if you had the entire collection of all the cards in the deck, or in black, you would still use something else.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see, obviously, what it all comes out, but that's my expectation. But we should probably move on to the next card. How about you take this one, Cymen, and tell us about Necrophos?
Oh, yes. I'm actually a big fan of Necrophos. In Dota 2, he was one of the first heroes I ever learned, but he was way worse back then. Necrophos is a black hero card, and his natural passive ability is Sadist, just like it used to be in Dota 2. And this passive ability allows him to be modified with more health with every enemy neighbor that dies in front of him. So whenever a hero or a creep dies in front of him, meaning the unit straight ahead of him and left and right to it, he will gain 1 health. And we have seen in games that this stacks up pretty quickly. He can become a very tanky hero over the course of a game. And this synergizes beautifully with his signature card Heartstopper Aura, which is a 4-mana black spell which modifies a black hero with deal 2 piercing damage to this hero's enemy neighbors before the action phase. So this is basically a spell that gives a black hero a complete passive ability. And it will deal damage before every combat phase, every action phase, every round. And again, this damage stacks up and it really synergizes great with Necrophos' own passive Sadist. So if you put the Heartstopper Aura on him and he gets these 2 passives, it stacks up really nicely. But we have seen players choose Solar Khan for this as well.
Anger, what are your thoughts on this card?
I really like it. I actually have it in my in TTS. I have a red-black deck, which is basically just full of super beefy heroes from both black and red. But I also have Necrophos, and it's because of his passive, which is so strong. Because and I deploy him the second round, because then some of the creeps will be at only 2 HP. So I play him, and the same round they will die. So I will be almost always guaranteed that he gets either +1 or +2, at the very least, more health. Mm-hmm. And the only problem I have is that his Heartstopper Aura, it has to be used on a black hero. Yeah. And in that deck, I only have 2 black heroes and 3 red. So that is my only problem. But it is really good for him. So I just use it on him, and it's fine.
Yeah, I actually thought that this would be a really interesting card to have as part of a more controlling deck, because it was interesting that this was applied and used in a more aggressive deck in the context of the event. But I also know that the decks that were being used there were not necessarily designed to be competitive tier. They were designed to be beginner compatible. But anyway, the with this card, the reason that I would see this as being interesting in a control application is you apply this aura a number of times to heroes over the course of the game. You have this ability sort of building up advantages. You pair this with blue to have some board clears, and especially the like we talked before about how conflagration will stack with the conflagration. Well, conflagration also stacks with Heartstopper Aura too. Mm-hmm. So being able to sort of control the board by having multiple instances of these ping effects on each of your lanes, or at least a couple of your lanes, will really help you dominate the game going forward. And Necrophos will grow into a total monster with his health gaining 1 or 2 health per turn.
Yeah, having damage instances happen before the action phase even takes place is really strong. And you got to keep in mind that you'll have 3 of those Heartstopper Auras in your deck. And you can stack them on 1 unit as well.
Yep.
And that gets really strong. Or you can spread the love and have several black heroes with Heartstopper Auras. It becomes really dangerous over time.
Yeah, the only one thing I would point about it that is a little bit disappointing is the fact that it's at the before the action phase, so that if you apply it to a hero on turn 2, for example, you don't get any damage out on turn 2. Which, I mean, it's fine, I understand, but it's still interesting. But it also actually means then probably you could pair this with blink effects or transport effects. Yeah. So for instance, if you have this in lane 1, it procs, then you blink to lane 2, move over to lane 2, and it procs again.
Gorgeous.
That was sick.
Yeah.
Well, you would have to take into account the blink cooldown, but it's still good because you have to play it for the first time at one point, and then you can apply it on a blink hero.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so. I didn't think of that. That's so good.
Okay, so that's actually, I think, a really interesting hero, and I want to play around with that to see if it's good enough. Definitely slow in, I think, in how it would work, but potentially really, really powerful. Let's move on to blue, though. We're going to start with Earthshaker. Anger, tell us about Earthshaker.
Well, Earthshaker is what made me say, fuck creeps, fuck summoning anything, I'm just gonna get really powerful heroes so he can't fuck with me with Echo Slam.
Not a fan of Echo Slam, are you?
No. Fuck Earthshaker, honestly.
Oh, God.
That's what I have to say. You want me to talk about Earthshaker? Fuck him.
I was going to say read the card, but I'll just take that off your hands. You clearly don't have a good relationship with it. Okay, Earthshaker. This is a hero. It's a rare. It's a 2/7. It has the ability Fisher, active ability, stun Earthshaker's enemy neighbors this round. And that has a 4-turn cooldown.
Mm-hmm.
Do we actually like fully confirmation of exactly how stun works? Is it like a disable? Like how is it different than a disable or a disarm rather?
You can't do anything with those units anymore. Like they can't attack, they can't use their abilities, they can't use their items. I don't think you can even cast spells with them.
Yeah, that was my question. That was the one that I need confirmed on you soon, because I wasn't able to figure that out from the footage that I watched. But actually, comment below if you're somebody who's watching on YouTube or on the SoundCloud as well. Comment below and tell us what if you figured that out of how that works. But yeah, 2/7, not exciting. The fish ability seems pretty useful, pretty good. But the Echo Slam is a really spectacular ability. This is a 7-cost spell. Deal damage to each enemy equal to the number of enemies. So you like if there's a lane that has 5 enemies in the lane, you play Echo Slam and deal 5 damage to each of the enemies.
5 fucking damage to each of the units.
Yep.
Well, you were playing around for a while with a go wide strategy, right?
Wait, what did you say?
Is that part of the reason why you were playing around with a go wide strategy of like spawning a bunch of creeps with like dimensional portal or whatever, right? That was something that you were working with before.
RMP and the Shadow Fiend creep.
Disciple of
What's his name? And it was going great until I got fucking Echo Slammed.
So I think that means that the Echo Slam ability is good, is what that implies. One of my questions, honestly, is about the number. Like, blue seems to have so much AoE, just has tons of it, and I'm almost kind of like wondering, like, how much is too much? Like, do you want a deck that has like Luna with her Eclipse and Echo Slams with the Earthshaker and Annihilation and Thunder God's Wrath, like
Thunder God's Wrath.
Yeah, like there just seems to be tons and tons of it. I mean, like it's good, don't get me wrong, but it feels like there's just so much of it, and there's got to be like a point at which you say, yeah, that like I don't need any more.
I think the big controlling factor to that is simply the mana cost. That's massive. I mean, I mean, that's still in the high rounds of a game where you can even cast it, and then you will still be wasting your whole lane's mana pool on it. And that lasts a couple rounds as well. I mean, there's very few spells that only have a 1 mana cost, so your 7 mana pool and your 8 mana pool basically are completely ravaged by Echo Slam or Thunder God's Wrath, etc.
But I think,
and the thing is, you gotta keep in mind that you want to keep initiative, so you can maybe eliminate a blue hero before that even happens. Like, there's many ways to play around these big abilities, because you know from the loading screen onwards that you will have to deal with it.
Yeah. But it's only a matter of time before they come back, though. And the player still has that card on their hand. So it's only a matter of time before they will play it. But the thing is, I find interesting about Echo Slime and why it's so powerful is that because, okay, for example, what's the blue card that destroys everything? Condemnation? What's it called?
Annihilation.
Annihilation, yeah. It destroys everything on both sides, right? So it has the mana cost, but it also has a cost for you. So Luna's Lucent Beam, it's really good, but it's still a bit of RNG there. You know, if you don't have enough charges to kill everything, you need a bit of luck. Zeus's spell only does damage to heroes, I believe. I haven't. I'm not sure. Yeah. So Echo Slam is the only one. Is the only spell you can know for pretty sure that you will kill everything at only a 7 mana cost. Nothing else. You will kill everything on the enemy side at no cost.
They will have to flood the board for that.
Yeah, of course.
Basically, this is a direct counter to board flooding,
of course,
strategies, and it's not even piercing damage; it's just damage. So heroes and units with high armor will laugh it off.
They will certainly not laugh off. If you have, okay, let's say you have, if you have 3 melee creeps, you have 1 hero, you have 6 RMPs, and then 1 Disciple of Nevermore.
Yeah, I mean that
it's not. They're not going to laugh it off, even if they have armor.
I feel like that's fair at that point. At that point, I'm just waiting for the Echo Slam.
Like, I feel like this is a good card that is an example of, like, it has matchups where it's really good against something like an Armored Cleave deck. It's against a, you know, something that's like building up a, you know, a big axe that has a lot of armor or whatever, or bristleback style deck. Like, it's not like absurd. Like, it's good. Like, I don't think this card is ever going to be bad. It'll range.
Okay, the thing is,
it'll range from like fine to amazing in given situations.
Even against players who don't have zoo decks, sometimes you still just for some reason have like, or actually quite often, at least in TTS, like you will have like at least 7 units in one lane, even if you're not playing a zoo deck.
I mean, well,
it's not that uncommon.
Yeah, I think that we'll have to see like more. I'm interested to see people play myself of exactly see how it plays out, because I think that this definitely has the potential to. It's going to consistently do a reasonable amount of damage, but definitely also as strategies evolve, I wouldn't be surprised if people come up with some good counters to this. The fact that Earthshaker himself has a 2/7 is a downside, but I definitely think this is sort of card that is going to see some play. But we should probably continue to move forward. Talk about our next, creep hero, which is Jumai the Wise. That's what I'm saying, at least. It's, yeah.
Yep,
So Jumai the Wise. He is a 3/8. He has the activate ability Wisdom of the Elders, which is also the name of a card from Eternal. But and this ability is a 3 cooldown, and it lets you draw a card. And then
it's 4, I believe.
Oh, 4. Okay. And then
4.
his signature card is Battlefield Control, and it says choose a unit, choose a combat target for it. This is like the only one of the cards that I'm going to be talking about today that I'm going to come down and say, I think this guy is just terrible. Like, I really do not think that this card is good. He is like 3/8 is not impressive stats by any stretch of that. Like, it's like there are cards that are definitely worse, but there are a lot of like, I mean, a lot that have a lot better stats than this. His active ability is really slow. Really, really slow. Now, apparently that it's 4. And his signature card, like, there are 1-cost cards that do very similar things that you could just have ready access to. So, overall, I think this card is trash.
I disagree.
You disagree?
I disagree.
Okay.
Once again, I think...
Not everything can be good, Simon. There have to be bad things.
But Battlefield Control is amazing. It's only 1 mana, and you can choose any unit, even enemy units. Like, we actually saw a case where you can actually target the towers and ancients as well. Like, we actually saw a case where the aggro was redirected to the tower directly, which got someone, I believe, either a win or an amazing draw on a completely over-flooded board, which was amazing. And even the casters on the stream kept saying, yes, his stats and his ability are kind of shit. He is decently tanky for the kind of hero that he is. His ability is kind of shit with such a long cooldown, but all of them basically said that battlefield control is amazing. Like, it's so cheap, and you can target enemies and just tell them what to attack. Like, you can redirect any aggro that annoys you, and that is absolutely amazing after how many times we saw those aggro cards screw someone over.
Yeah, I agree. His signature card is good, but it's still not good enough that I would put Muy Bien Jajaja XD in my deck.
Yeah, I think that like the reason why I don't think this is, I think that like there are other cards that you have access to that do similar-ish things, like Ventriloquy. That is the one that you get choose a unit and it taunts. Etc. Like there are ways to do similar things that doesn't require that you have to play a hero.
Not the same.
I mean, I know it's not the same. I'm aware that it's not the same. It's just that you get to actually play a good hero. In Insanity. So that's one of the reasons why I am attracted to something else instead. But maybe I'm willing to be proven wrong. Don't get me wrong. Like if let's say Jim Wei is just top tier constructed card, man. I'll eat my words, but he does not excite me.
You'll see. Jamal is top tier.
Jamal is top tier. I but RSVP no on that one. But let's move on. This is another one that I think is really exciting.
Just one more thing. This is actually one of the heroes that we saw or that we heard Cyclops talk about. Back then, he actually didn't have a name yet, and he just said he was a troll warlock or troll druid or something. So since then, he's gotten a name. Just like the Ogre Bruiser became Keith, which we'll be talking about later.
Yep. So how about you read us Meepo?
Okay. Well, Meepo is a blue hero. He's got 4 attack, 5 health. He's, of course, rare. And his signature card is Divided We Stand, his ultimate from Dota, which is summon another Meepo. But here's where it gets interesting. He is a very direct adaptation of his Dota counterpart. He has 2 passives, which are United We Fall, and he's got the active ability Poof. Basically, if one Meepo dies, all of them die, just like in Dota. And he has the Poof ability, so he can poof over, blink, so to say, to one of the other Meepos, and he will even deal damage to the enemy neighbors of his new position. Mm-hmm. It is an incredibly interesting, fun, and powerful card that can be wonderfully misplayed.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I noticed with this is that you only have 3 other Meepos, right? The Divided We Stand card, and you can get really deck fucked and not draw a single one. So you will be stuck with just one shitty Meepo. You can't even poof.
Yeah, that's a possibility. Yeah, that's a good point. But it is also something that this card to me seems to have a really high potential power level. Like the ceiling on this card is really high. Like one of the things we need to see first, I think, is how modifications and items work with him. Because this is not a card that we saw him play over the weekend. So, for instance, if you let's say that on the end of turn 1, I was able to purchase a weapon or purchase an item of some sort, like a cape that gave +4 health. I put that on a Meepo, like the Meepo that's already in play, and then I play Divided We Stand. Is the copy a 4/5 or is it a 4/9?
I think it summons the original Meepo, so you just get the original one, the base card. That's what I imagine.
Yeah, because it says nothing about sharing the exact stats, which is a thing in Dota, but I don't think it will like copy whatever buffs there are on one of them. We'll have to see about that. But one part of this card combo that I'm noticing is that you can only have 3 copies of Divided We Stand, which means if you cast 2 or 3, all 3 of those, and the opponent manages to kill a Meepo, you will only ever get 1.
Don't all of them go into the fountain? Because there are 4 individual cards.
But do you think they all respawn?
There are 4 individual cards.
Oh man, I guess they're all heroes, aren't they? Oh man. They're all heroes, aren't they? So this is a real...
This is a card that I think is really hard to evaluate without a lot more knowledge of the way in which the mechanics fit together, because this is a complicated card. The way that I would describe it, though, is that there are... like the poof ability, for example, of getting 2 damage, whatever you're moving your Meepo around. If you're able to get multiple Meepos active and jumping around, hopping around from lane to lane, 2 damage here, 2 damage there, like that can be really annoying. You can also reposition things where you're able to get the, like for instance, like pushing this, beside another unit that has that regeneration hammer, like abusing different positioning sorts of effects. There's lots of different ways to abuse this, this combination of abilities, and especially if things like modifications and items stack on all of them, then it just gets out of control. So I really want to see how this actually works in the game. But for right now, I'm just excited I just think that it's a wonderfully cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, imagine.
And something nice.
Okay.
Yeah. And something nice is that each Meepo has a different card art.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is why I think all of them will survive. Like when they die, they all go into the fountain. But okay, imagine having a blue-green zoo deck with Meepo. And what you do is, okay, so this is what you do, okay? So you place, you poof all your Meepos, all 4 of them, into one lane. And then you play, what's the card that modifies them as immune to all damage?
Oh yeah, you
use that on all of them. So you poof them all to a green hero, and then you use that, and then you have so many of them. Plus, you have Dimensional Portal, and you have all the creeps from the green, and you just fucking swarm your opponent. I don't know, maybe it's crap. And here comes Echo Slam,
your favorite card coming in to save the day.
Exactly.
Oh,
it was your own damn fault.
So yeah, I'm definitely excited though to see how that one plays out, because there's a lot of possibilities. But let's move on to the next one, which is Skywrath Mage. This is a 3/6. He blue hero once again, and he has the ability Concussive Shot. It's an active ability with a 2-turn cooldown. Give a hero and its allied neighbors -2 armor this turn. And his signature card is Mystic Flare. Deal 12 damage, equally divided among a unit and its allied neighbors. And he is a common, for the record.
Okay, I think Skywrath Mage is actually insane. Only a 2-round cooldown to give a hero and its allied neighbors. Oh, it's only... never mind, it's only this round. I thought it was...
Yeah. I don't think it's pretty good. I think it's a really good, like, especially if you set it up properly. Like, this is, I think, a really good hero to have placed on the second turn, because the cooldown will be off. You put him onto a crowded board, you activate the ability, and then the fact that it doesn't cost any mana either, you can then follow up with even just something like that 2 damage to everything spell, and now you deal 4 damage to 3 of the guys, and you can really get really ahead on board. It's a really powerful ability.
And his Mystic Flare is so fucking strong. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, depending on your placement and the placement of the opponent's heroes, it can either be a very high damage single target elimination spell, depending on the positioning, or it can be a pretty nice board clear of like 3 units. Really nice.
Yeah, I think that it seems really good. And also, like, the interaction between Mystic Flare and Concussive Shot is quite strong too, because So, like, for instance, you play it, you use the ability the first time on turn 2. Then on turn 4, when the 6 mana turn, the second round of concussive shot is active now. You can use it if you are give -3 to armor to 3 enemies. Then you use the Mystic Flare. You deal 6 damage to each of them. That's really strong.
That's insane.
Or 8 damage to 2 of them, or 14 damage to 1. So this is a really versatile card in my mind that works well both against a go wide strategy and a go tall strategy.
Yeah, I gotta say, this one is in the bag.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident in this one. I mean, it's so hard to go wrong with like a 12 damage nuke. That's a lot of damage for 6. So really exciting stuff. Okay, so that is it for blue heroes. That was actually the color that we had the most of. So let's move on to green. Our creep hero for green is Farvahan the Dreamer. He is a 4/11. He has the continuous ability Farvahan's Dreamer's allied neighbors have +1 armor. So that's not himself, but it's the creatures, or the units rather, that are beside him. And then his signature card is a 4-cost 0/8 that has the same ability functionally, which the Prowler's Vanguard's allied neighbors have +1 armor. I didn't say the name. I think it's a Prowler Vanguard. Cymen, what do you think about this guy?
This guy's is really nice if you do have a zoo deck or something that spawns a lot of units, because you can casually give those units extra armor. And if there's one thing that we've seen from all the gameplay, it's that armor is a super valuable stat.
It is. Yeah.
And again, this is one of those neutral creep-inspired heroes from one of the ancient creeps. He's a prowler. And again, he's one of those creeps that the color faction seem to be named after. So again, I'm looking forward to the lore implications.
And I actually think this creep hero isn't that crap. Like, of course, he's only middle. Like he's at the same as most other heroes. He's not amazing, but at least I don't feel
beefy.
that underwhelmed by him, because both his creep and his ability is pretty good, and he has really high health too.
Yeah, really great body.
Yeah, I think that this is as I say, great body. I think that this is a really good meat shield, essentially. Like, if you are like, for instance, you're a green-blue deck that's looking to go into the late game, or a ramp deck that's looking to go into the late game, this is a great card to just soak up a bunch of damage and time of your opponent and slow the game down, if that's what you want to do. Like, in some respects, like, going back to talking about Riley wasn't particularly great at anything. Like okay, like pretty good at trading, I guess, but not really spectacular or anything. This is like amazing at just stalling the game out. And if that's what you want, like, he's here for you. Like, obviously, if you're a more aggressive deck, not really what you're interested in. But if you're more interested in just stalling, then he's good.
Yeah, he even one-shots creeps. It's really nice.
Yes, that's another good point. That's an important note to put in. Actually, maybe I'll just quickly plug an article that I wrote this past week about evaluating cards in Artifact. This is something that I talked about in terms of some of the most important questions to ask yourself in when you're looking at a new card. Because I know there are a lot of you who might not know where to start when you're looking at a card. It's like, I don't know, like, it's got some numbers on it. Seems good, I guess. But this is one that I think that'll be a useful lesson for you. And there'll be a link to that in the notes that are associated with this and in the description. Up next, we have Magnus, who is another green hero. This one's a common. It is a 4/1/9 with no ability. And it has the signature card of Empower. Modify a unit with +3 attack and +3 cleave. Who of you has a passionate opinion about Magnus?
Well, I think Magnus is kind of the opposite of what's his name, Moibian the Wise, because with Or no, wait. Yeah, he's the opposite in the sense that they're both pretty or not that strong, but I would get them for the signature card, you know. But Jamoy, I just wouldn't get. But Magnus, I would actually consider getting. Like he has pretty decent stats, of course, since he doesn't have an ability. But if you look at, for example, Axe, who also doesn't have an ability, his stats are much higher. But Empower is such a good spell that it might still be worth it. But I don't know. I haven't made up my mind on it yet.
I would say that it's a very similar card to Farvan the Dreamer. Same attack, similar health, but 1 armor. And again, even 1 armor in the early game is really valuable. And the Empower card can make all the difference, especially in a crowded lane. Like 3 cleave, that's powerful.
3 cleave is a lot.
So far, 3 cleave is a lot. Like hitting secondary targets with 3 damage, even when they're not even aggro to you, that's so nice. And it's modify. Again, that sticks around. And you get to use this, if you have the card draw, you get to use Empower like 3 times in a game, hopefully. And if you do get to use it 3 times on those, key heroes, that's super powerful. 3 cleave, thank you.
Well, also the fact that this is something that maybe they haven't emphasized enough, but there are some that say, modify a hero. There's some that say modify a unit, and there's some that say modify a hero of a given color. So this is, like, for instance, we talked earlier about Necrophos, and that Necrophos' ability is modifying a black hero. This is just modify a unit. So you can put it on a red hero, you can put it on any color of hero that you want, and even you can put it onto a creep if that's something that's relevant, given the board state. Obviously, you would prefer to have it on a hero, but there are going to be times where you're like, oh, this +3 attack gives me lethal. Or, that +3 cleave will like clear out the board, just given the positioning on the board. So that's something that I think there's a good versatility on that, and stacking that will be good. And I'm not sure how this will measure up once we have like the full card pool for it, but definitely I think I could see some decks being perfectly happy to include Magnus.
And there is another card that also costs 4 mana and gives +4 cleave, but it's only for 1 round. I think the biggest thing about this card is that it's so cheap. 4 mana for +3 attack and +3 cleave modified on any unit. That's insane. Only 4 mana.
Yeah.
That's pretty strong, yes.
Yeah, it is.
This is actually a good point to talk about the way that they seem to balance hero cards, because there are basically 3 aspects to every hero card, and that's the stats, ability, and signature card. And they seem to switch it around in a way where 1 or 2 of them are really powerful, and 1 of them is either missing or crap.
Yeah.
And in this case, we see Magnus completely missing any sort of passive or active ability, having a fairly decent body in terms of stats, and having this amazing premier card. It really is strong. And just to pick up on the point you just made, Neon, we actually saw a game on stream where somebody made a regular freaking creep invulnerable for the rest of the game.
Easy. Love it.
It was super valuable, because that creep kept blocking a Necrophos that I believe had 2 stacks of Heartstopper aura on it.
Love it.
Like, that player had already, buffed Necrophos with 2 of his signature cards, and it ended up being a total waste, because he didn't have to kill Necrophos for a while. He could just let Necrophos get damaged by that 2 damage over and over, and Necrophos couldn't do anything to him.
Nice.
Like, situationally, it is really useful to put something on a unit that will eventually expire like a creep.
Lots of interesting strategic implications. But with that, let's move on to another card that I think shows a sort of converse, the flip side of what we're seeing here with Magnus. And that's Keith the Bold. So Keith...
Much more cerebral card.
This is a card for the thinking man. So it is 6/1/11 in the stats, and which is kind of like a discount axe. So there's a 1 less attack and 1 less armor. of the ability. And then there's no passive or active ability on Keep, just 6/1/11, and then it has the signature card, 5 cost. Fighting Instinct is the name. 5 cost. Modify a red hero with +1 attack and +1 armor. This is a really shitty signature card for the record. Like you compare that, like
it is expensive.
Yeah, like we'll just like compare it to Empower. +1 attack and +1 armor versus +3 attack, +3 cleave for an additional cost, and it can only be on a red hero. So it's got some problems in that respect. But the body's ginormous. So I think that this is a pretty decent like kind of starting card, and I can imagine some brawling aggro decks that could kind of play this, but this is certainly not high on the subtlety.
This one is definitely on the high stat side.
Yeah.
Like no ability, super expensive premier card for what it does, but these stats are something that other heroes have to be buffed up twice for.
Yeah.
Like 1 armor, 11 health, and still 6 attack. That is a pretty amazing, beefy, strong hero.
Yeah, it is.
And if you put that in your lane on turn 1, that is something that the opponent will have to deal with for a couple rounds to come.
But it really annoys me that his signature card is worse than Axis, and he has lower stats, and it's all explained by his rarity because he's common and Axis rare. It really annoys me. It's so obvious that it's to make money. And I've been so loyal to Valve this entire time. Like, no, it's not pay to win. It's power does not correlate with rarity, whatever, yada, yada. But then they give us this, and it's so obvious.
Yeah, so that is, I think, a really good topic that I would love to get into with you guys at like a different cast, like kind of top to bottom with it. Like with this one particularly, like measuring up to Axe, you're like, it's pretty obvious in this case. I mean, in this is a basic card, so it's the idea that these basic cards I don't think are aimed for competitive play exactly. So that's kind of like the comparison of it that you're saying of why you can kind of get a card that almost seems to be strictly worse. But yeah, I definitely understand why you're annoyed by that and why other people have been annoyed by that too. So
let me put it like that. You can't have 2 axes on your team.
It's true.
But with Keith the Bold, you get the next best thing. Like, I feel like all of those creep heroes that seem to be like worse versions for the most part of their true hero counterparts is that they are still second to only that hero. So if you are going for that strategy that centers around that sort of hero unit, you'll want both of those.
Oh yeah, I could
I'm just thinking of strategies that would require those heroes,
Yeah, I could imagine in a mono red deck that's just, big, stumpy, beefy idiots, and that's all you do, then I can maybe see him seeing play there, but he would be like the position 5 of that team. Not in terms of like, not in terms of as a particular meaning, but in terms of just the least appealing member of the team there. But he could do it. But let's move on to the next card, which I know Anger is very excited about.
Let's have you speak out your opinion.
Next.
I'm all ears.
I don't even want to look at it. I'm not looking at my screen right now. Go next.
Okay. Well, you can just plug your ears. We'll spend a few moments of it. Cymen and I have been bothering Anger about Mazzy, who's the next card up. This is
we wholeheartedly recommend you take a look at Anger's video about Mazzy, where she did some super adorable fan art of Mazzy, her Mazzy, really.
Yeah.
And this is what we were greeted by on the very first day, by the screens.
Don't enlarge it!
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
That's
not even
nice.
a female.
Very good. And this is one of the first new heroes that we were greeted by. And it's
fucking
this
hibiscus monkey. It's a hibiscus monkey. A real life creep.
Monkey. Yeah.
Hey, you were right about the mech. You were right about the mech part, and the design of the mech even looks very close to that original art we saw before with the roundish
That's not
cockpit.
pigtails, that's ears. That's disgusting long ears.
Yeah.
Such a hater. He's just trying to be helpful, trying to, reinforce your structures.
Look at that smile. Does that look like someone who's trying to be helpful? No. He's the type of guy who will scam you. Take all your money.
He just wants love.
Does this look?
Does
this look like the face of mercy too?
He's just looking for love, okay? looking for
It's
a home.
nothing here. Bye.
Okay, let's go over the actual card quickly. So Mazzy 636. That armor is really worth noting. 3 armor is the most that we've seen on a hero so far. So
yeah, from the get-go.
Yeah, 3 armor to begin with. There's no ability. I mean, I think that the ability is the 3rd armor. So but there's no actual passive ability on or active ability on Mazzy. And then the hero card, signature card, rather, is Steel Reinforcements, which gives your tower +1 armor. This is a card that I actually think has some really interesting particular applications. Mm-hmm. The one that I was thinking of was a red-blue control deck or some other sort of controlling style deck, because Mazzy is such a roadblock with so much armor, and then this improvement card also slows down aggression. You play these out, you stall the game, then you get to the Time of Triumph, Thunder God's Wrath, Echo Slam, later in the game. So I think that I could imagine a deck that is a red-blue deck with 2 copies of with a Mazzy and Axe as these sort of meteor heroes that try to slow down the aggression, and then the blue heroes to actually provide the punch in the late game. It's kind of what I was thinking about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, this hero does just so amazingly well in the early game.
Yeah.
The health is decent, the armor is super high. It will not get a single point of damage from creeps and some heroes, like Crystal Maiden, for example, or Earthshaker.
Yeah.
There's a lot of 3 attack ones. And then, even if you get to a 4 attack one, there's a lot of 4 attack ones. They're doing 1 damage each. Who gives a shit?
Instead of having, it's just hard enough to get damage on this hero in the very early game, for the first 2 rounds or something. And it is...
And then imagine if you give it any additional armor.
And it's really nice to see a board improvement like Steel Enforcement that actually alters your tower. Even 1 armor on your tower that is reduced damage for every unit that attacks the tower. That is still pretty value for 4 mana, I'd say. And again, considering that you have several of these in your deck, you can either stack it up or you can spread the love a little bit, spread that buff. Well, you have to keep in mind that it's a board improvement, and we do know of a couple ways to remove those already, like Pugna and the Apotheosis Blade. But still, that's super value in my opinion.
Yep. So I don't think that Anger has anything else to say on the subject, so we'll move on to the next card. This was
she's busy retching.
I think this one is actually a little bit more Anger's speed in terms of what she's interested in. How about you tell us about Ursa?
Really like what I see. He has 7 attack, no armor, 10 health, and he has a reactive ability that makes him modify units he battles with for -1 armor. That's crazy. That's insane. Do you even realize how crazy that is? Okay. And then he also has a spell signature card that gives a red hero +4 attack and +4 armor this round.
It is a very impressive card. And I think this is a natural candidate for spells such as Duel and Berserker's Call.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Berserker's Call, because Ursa would deal damage to probably 3 units at once before the combat phase even starts. So before combat even happens, you get to apply minus armor on those units. That's pretty damn amazing.
Yeah, he brawls like a champ. I don't think that it'll take very much work for him to really, take down the game. And like it's just something too that, like, especially imagine you're in a game against a more controlling deck playing out Ursa, and your opponent's early heroes feed a couple of times, like they're playing Zeus, they're playing Crystal Maiden, or whatever. You just eat a couple of those up. Now they all have negative armor for the rest of the game, and which makes it so that even their ability to recover in the late game is hampered, so that although he's good in the early game, he's very good in the early game, he actually still, like, his impact in the early game is going to be felt forever. So definitely, I think this is a really strong candidate for some aggressive decks to fit into it, and mid-rangey decks too.
And okay, so there's a lot of stuff that modifies health and attack and replenishes health and stuff, but there is not, so far that we've seen, so many things you get for cheap that recovers armor. So every time he attacks a hero, they get minus armor, which you either have to buy armor items for, which are really expensive compared to how much armor you get, or very few spells or abilities that gives armor, like for example the Prowler. So like I think this is probably one of the first things that's going to be nerfed, because I don't know, I haven't actually seen him played, and he's not in TTS yet, but this just seems so crazy to me.
It is definitely strong.
Yeah, and this is a common card too, so I imagine this will see a lot of play in the budget-friendly decks as well.
I think, I just think that there's one general thing about how decks are built that we are not really taking a look at just yet, which may alter our thinking quite a lot, which is the order in which we want heroes to spawn. Because we have seen that there are some heroes that are fairly weak in terms of body, in terms of stats. And we are talking about these super strong ones like Ursa and Keith, for example, in terms of early game. But the question is really, and we don't know anything about this yet because we don't know anything about the meta that's going to emerge, but all of these may end up as turn 4 or turn 3 or turn 2 heroes, and not turn 1 heroes, because you can't put all those weak-bodied heroes into the later rounds without buffing them up first. Like, there's some strategy to the order of heroes in your deck that may alter our thinking in these terms a lot once the game is actually out.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about that a lot, and I think that there are different heroes already that I've sort of picked out as having some of those sorts of roles. As like, one, I do think that beefy heroes, that especially those that have like a lot of health, are really good for coming out on turn 1. The one that I picked out that I think is a quintessential come out on turn 2 hero is Skywrath Mage, because his ability is so good when you can pick its spot. Specifically, he doesn't have a good creep matchup on turn 1, but he does have a good creep matchup on turn 2 because he's able to use his ability to give it the negative armor. So he's the one so far that I've picked out as being a absolutely, this is definitely a turn 2 hero. And then beyond that, I'm sort of figuring it out still as to where the different ones fit together. But that's my take on it so far.
I really advise to play Tabletop Sim Artifact, because there you actually get to try the different heroes and what to play first and second, and you actually learn a lot from it.
Yeah, it certainly alters your perspective.
Yeah, I'm probably going to try and get some time in on TTS in the near future, hanging out with that game and try a few things that I'm already deck building in my head, but that's all really exciting stuff. So with that, that will bring us to the end of this cast. One thing I definitely want to plug that we didn't plug at the top was actually Valve News Network. We were hanging out with him during some of the cast on Friday specifically, and that was a lot of fun. We were talking with him over the IGN game he was doing that, so check out his stuff. I know that he's got a bunch of videos supposed to be coming out today, I think, on artifact and the stuff that he saw over the weekend for the PAX. So shout out to him as well. Of course, check out everything else that's been happening at A-Space Games. We can find a lot of great material. I'm working right now on a couple of different videos that I want to come up over the next couple of days. I've been having these problems with my laptop that has slowed me down a little bit. But now that I have a new laptop, thank goodness, that is resolved, and I will hopefully be back up to full steam in the very near future. Cymen, what are you up to? How's your Grimstroke video coming along?
It is coming along great. We should be able to release that very soon. We haven't been able to just yet because of all this PAX hype. And of course, we had to push out a couple videos for that. And I do recommend that everyone checks out the Artificers Guild. I believe at this point we have 3 new videos out since PAX. And all of those are very informative about all of the heroes, about all the stuff. And there's even more coming. So stay tuned, subscribe, etc. Shilling done.
And Anger, what about you?
Yeah, I actually got a really exciting idea for a video because for a long time I've been looking for a map of the Dota 2 universe, like just a map of where all the places are and stuff. And there are some that exist, some in parts, some fan-made, some official from Valve. But I want to make a video where we actually go into the world of Dota 2, like go to the different places and see what has happened there and who lives there. And I posted on my Twitter a poll where you can vote what my next lore video is going to be. And right now, the world of Dota 2 is in the lead, I believe. But there's still 2 more days to vote. So if you want to see something else, you can go to my Twitter and vote if you want.
Just one little footnote, actually, now that we're talking about the lore. It's Bruno and Slacks were talking a little, and it sounds like it is now confirmed that Viper was at one point Pugner's pet. Sorry, I just couldn't hold on to that anymore.
Cool. That's a neat little side note. But anyway, that will do it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Be sure to follow on Twitter, on Facebook, and check out the Patreon as well if you have a chance in order to support everything that happens at A-Space Games. That'll do it for today. Thank you so much once again. Take care, everybody.
Peace.
Thank you. Thank you for your business.